The IDP Pros podcasts on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network are brought to you by Bird Dog Shorts. Dominate summer with an amazing pair of shorts and a free Yeti style tumbler when you order over at birddogs.com/pool. That's birddogs.com/pool.
Yeah! Run! Stay on! Sack on the ball!
The IDP Pro Players Pod is a proud member of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, home of the hottest, smartest, and fastest growing sports gambling and fantasy football providers in professional sports entertainment to date. And now, without any further delay, here's your veteran, infamous No Dirty O in-season and senior IDP pros, Johnny the Greek and Gary, the IDP tipster, coming off the edge as always with their deepest standard league NFL defensive takes.
Welcome back to the IDP Pros Podcast. My name is Johnny the Greek. I am joined with the senior IDP analyst for the SGPN network, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Gary Van Dyke. Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Excited.
Yes, sir. We're both excited because this week we got Ryan Kramer at Kramer-centric on Twitter, one of maybe the founding father of SGPN, the entire network. Ryan, how are you, sir?
Oh, I mean, I hear we're hot. I like that. This is a sexy party here. We have the hottest analysts in the game. Yeah, no, Sean and I we decided to start talking sports gambling a while back, and turned into a bit of a network. And now, yeah, here we are. So I'll give him a little bit of credit, but it was a team effort.
Yeah, it certainly has grown, that's for sure. So we may as well start at the beginning, right? Like I saw that tweet you guys put out a few weeks ago, where we were, where we are now, and man, what a difference. How did you guys come up with the idea for SGPN, and how did we get to where we are today?
It's funny the things that people react to on the social media. Certainly kind of a fun journey. And yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was literally 2011. Podcasting was fairly new. It wasn't super new. Sean Stacking the Money Green, he had a comedy podcast already. And so this website that was offering this like fantasy sportsbook product where you could bet fake credits and win, and if you were really good, people could follow your picks, and they would get paid off of that. And so that was the origin. This website, I couldn't even tell you what their name was. I think they went out of business after one season. They reached out. They said, "Hey, we're looking for a weekly NFL show." At this point, we had already kind of become the spot where football happened, whether it was when we were living together in a house in Burbank, California, or if it was just on a random Sunday, because if you've ever been out to Los Angeles, sports is generally not the first priority, and especially not football. So when they reached out and asked about us starting a show, we were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're already doing it. We talk football all week. Let's just record it, put it out, figure out how to do this podcast thing. And so that was the beginning. We broke down the games. 2011 was the first year. Shout out to my Giants. They won the Super Bowl that year. We just stopped at the end of the year because we didn't know any better. We took a lot. I think we might have even taken the whole off season off. We showed back up year 2, and we realized, hey, maybe we should cover March Madness, and expanded all the way to where we were doing daily podcasts. And then around 2017, we saw the people were talking legal sports gambling. And if you haven't heard the story, Sean won $200,000. And so we had this kind of sweet convergence of events, and that's when we decided to launch the company, the network, and figured, the way that we got started was we just got started, and we grew because people liked what we were talking about, and they stuck around because they wanted to support us. And our goal with the network was let's kind of build a framework where we can bring people in who have that same kind of independent energy. They want to work for themselves, but they also want to work for this collective good, with the idea that the tide rises, everyone's ship hopefully is floating up to the top with us. And yeah, it's been a trip because It's always fun when we see, it's March Madness and we see our show, or we see our college basketball show trending. It's, we see our NBA show trend. It's just as fun as when our show kind of started to gain that audience, as it has been for some of our other shows to start to grow and see that flywheel principle take off.
I love riding the coattail, man. I'm not gonna lie. I appreciate you bringing me on to SGPN, allowing this opportunity, sir.
Well, and Gary, I don't know if you see, but like we do have a slightly different vibe. I know you've joined some of our kind of corporate company happy hours.
Yeah, I'm a little bit oddball, right?
Well, you fit right in. I feel like what we offer is a safe place for all degenerates, no matter what you look like.
The individual thinking is a beautiful thing.
Look,
I love that.
And I think it's important. I think the number one thing we're seeing people fail at in both the fantasy space and the sports gambling space is doing the same thing that someone else has done, not trying to be yourself, not trying to. You'll go to so many seminars and so many of these trade shows where you'll hear successful content creators say, you got to be yourself. Got to be yourself. Go out, be yourself, and it'll just work out. And it's like, on some level, that's great advice. It's like, well, obviously, if it was that easy. I do think like not taking someone's creative control away and essentially understanding that long form audio, aka a podcast or a long form video podcast, is a very intimate relationship between you and probably one other person in their car or working out, doing something else. And you really have to work to gain that attention, build that relationship to where that one day they respond to you in their subconscious and you have at that point. And so, yeah, I think you can't be unnatural when you're doing that. It's a lot like Inception. Like your brain will pick up on it. This doesn't belong here. So I think, and that comes from personality, right? So, but yeah.
You can ask Jon. You don't get the same Gary that you had 5-6 years ago, because I learned on social media.
This is true.
If I want to make it in this industry, you only burn so many bridges so hot, I guess you could say. And it's helped set up me and Jon getting to work together and getting this opportunity, man. So I love it.
The SGPN Fantasy Football podcasts are now offering rewards for every episode downloaded and listened to on Spotify. Earning our Degen points by answering the posted Q&A questions now included in any of our great shows. And this month, SGPN Fantasy Football is currently giving away a $50 gift card. So what are you waiting for? Go to Spotify, listen in, and join in on the fun with SGPN Fantasy Football.
The IDP Pros podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by their lost and broken replacements policy. If you lose or break a pair, even on day one, they've told us they'll send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you make the purchase. With Shady Rays, you can look and feel good. To date, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. If you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. And exclusive to our listeners, Shady Rays is offering their best deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com and use promo code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try them for yourself. These shades are rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. We're also brought to you by the NBA Survivor Challenge. Make sure to check out our NBA Playoffs Survivor Challenge. Completely free to enter, and the winner gets $250 in cash and a $100 SGPN gift card exclusively on the SGPN app. Tell us about the second place with the Millie Maker. That immediately piqued my interest. That must have been huge for you guys in terms of having the capital to do what you want to do with this, I'm assuming?
I would be incorrect in saying it had nothing to do with it. It probably had less to do with it than it's a better story. But as the bystander, I mean, we spend week 1 of the NFL season in Vegas every year. It's kind of a staple. If you ever want to hang out with us, like, come to Vegas week 1 of the NFL season. We will be there. We will be watching games. We will be getting drunk. We will be participating in all sorts of activities that Vegas has to offer.
Nice.
And this year was 2017, and yeah, we had done our DFS preview, and I vividly remember that every year Sean gets way into like one guy. He reads too much in the preseason. He just gets into one guy, and that year was Tariq Cohen. And Tariq Cohen, if you remember, 2017 had an amazing first game where he caught like 10 passes. He was 3K in the Millie Maker. On top of that, he played a bunch of Eagles because he's an Eagles fan, and they slaughtered the Redskins that day. And well, anyway, long story short, like after the early games, he's sitting in first on $1 million with a nice lead. Late into the second games, he's in first until Scott Tolzien throws his second pick six of the day against the St. Louis Rams. So we have a running gag on our show, like Scott Tolzien owes Sean $800K. But the craziest part of the story is that was back when the Millie Maker included the night game, Giants-Cowboys game. And you might remember it because Odell was a late scratch. So there were a lot of people that couldn't pivot off Odell to anyone, and it turned out to be like a gross, slow-scoring, like, I don't know, it could have been 14-9, or even maybe there weren't any touchdowns. Anyway, long story short, he holds down the second place, wins the $200K, and just, you know, any normal human being would immediately want to leave Vegas because in his mind something was going to go wrong, or you know how it goes.
Right.
We just need to secure the bag,
Right.
and so yeah, I mean, certainly. It certainly helped to have money, right? Like, and then there was some crypto stuff along the way. Look, when you're sports gambling and you're dealing with maybe organizations that operate out of Costa Rica or other countries, cryptocurrency became this thing as well that kind of like accidentally helped us a bit in terms of some capital to, especially with expansion, right? Because and not to dive too deep into it, but like one of our big things was when we expand and bring people on, we wanted to pay them. We didn't want to play this free roll game of, we'll trade exposure for your time. And so, yeah, that was kind of it. Like we needed a little bit of capital and yeah, like things certainly help, but also it's a better marketing story than it is like real driver in terms of the success of the business.
It's a beautiful thing, man. God damn. Nice.
I know, right? I'm jealous.
Right.
Those.
Yeah. Hey, while we're on DFS, let's get into it. So you guys are known degenerates. What are your thoughts on the current landscape? We've got algorithms, optimizers. I used to play DFS a ton, and I know what you're talking about with the offshore stuff too. I had a Bovada account back in the day, so we're talking the same language here. But I don't play DFS anymore. I strictly sports gamble because you can actually win sports gambling. You can't win DFS, but I just want to get your take on it.
So yeah, it's an interesting because I agree, right? A lot of the edge has been squeezed out of DFS. You can, whether it's gripes with the platform, especially with FanDuel, or it's just gripes with the idea that you're playing against like perfection. You're playing against the solver, and obviously you're not gonna ever beat the solver. Where I do find to have, I'm always gonna fire the Millie Maker. I'm always gonna fire one lineup at the Millie Maker, just like I'm gonna buy a Powerball ticket when it gets over $1 billion. But I've been actually having a lot of fun playing 2 and 3 man contests. I've been really trying to focus on the idea of playing like, what is this cash play? Like, what is, because obviously like you can easily plug into an optimizer what is optimal, and optimal and cash have converged into the same thing. And I think it's still a fun game to play against that computer, because I'm not playing enough lineups for me to get like, you know, jammed into the margin, but I'm playing at a high enough stakes where I'm having some fun with it. And last year was good for me. I did pretty good. I'm a guy who watches the games. I understand the game of fantasy football. I understand the game theory of how to play big contests, how to play small contests, and like where a cash lineup is going to differ than a GPP lineup. But I actually just find like the construction of a cash lineup to be an interesting problem to solve. I'm one of these guys, like I got a family. So Sundays, to make Sunday about football, it had to be a working day. And to make it a real working day, my ass is like out of the house by 5:45. So I have this time. I'm on the West Coast, so I have that time to like sit and actually digest what I want to turn my lineup, my thoughts into a lineup. And so I would say I played way more cash last season than I ever have, and I enjoyed it a lot. So to your point, it's a small percentage of what I bet on the games. So I'm probably not that far off of you. I still enjoy the game of it. I still enjoy, we run a little $100 winner take all contest where it's like, I still like the feeling of taking that thing down on a weekend. And so I think for me, it's like the game theory and the competition angle is more fun. I'm not firing off, max entries into stuff and I'm not using an optimizer or anything cool like that. I'm a hand builder, artisanal hand crafter of lineups.
Nice.
That's awesome, man. I love that. The IDP Pros podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is a great place to get down on fantasy and player props all year long. Underdog Fantasy has your favorite NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball daily games. Plus, they're already doing best balls for the 2023 NFL season. Head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Before I got out of it, it was single entry and a lot of Superflex because there aren't as many people or optimizers with those two things. And you're right. It's nice to be able to handcraft and, put yourself up against the masses or the computer. And if you win, you feel good. But I'd make far more money gambling, and I assume you do as well. So what is your preferred site to gamble on? What is your preferred sport to bet on? And just thoughts in general. Any strategies you use? What do you got?
I think it's the obligatory. You should have multiple places you can bet. We were a win bet platform for a long time, and they were a presenting sponsor, and they offered a solution. But there are so many solutions, and like especially if you live somewhere like Colorado, like you have to forget the bonuses. Like I'm not even a bonus hawk in many cases, especially if I'm dealing with gray market stuff. I don't even bring me a bonus. I'm not here for that kind of action. I want access to my money when I want my money. And so me, I think you have if you want to talk about gray area stuff, absolutely Bet Online to me is like a premier option. If you're talking like onshore, the good stuff, FanDuel to me is for everything they've kind of like stopped doing for their DFS platform. They are a full-blown tech company when it comes to their gambling platform. And I think the combination of just their reputation mixed with their platform gives me the best experience when I'm in a legal state, especially. Like I think DraftKings at this point has said and done enough stuff to, if you're listening and aware, like screw them. They don't they're actually they're the reason we need regulators. Like I hate to say it, but they're the reason we need them because they're trying to be crooked. And you're seeing some of the same behavior from some of these small places. At least with FanDuel, they're not making those like reputation mistakes, but they also just have a nice platform. If you use their app, you have a positive experience. And to me, that's important, especially because it is nice to just hit a button and do the round robin. Like I know that the police out there will be like, wow, they're pushing these products on you that are massive hole. That's fine. But guess what? I like to round robin stuff. And I like round robining my big dogs on an NFL or a college football Saturday because that's you can make money that way. You can absolutely find value, and especially like favorites or dogs, like you can find value in that. It's just I like the ease of being able to click a button and say round robin, and not every platform does that. So sometimes it's just the simple things. Like I don't need you to push like 17 pre-built same game parlays. I'm going to build my own. But what I would like is like when my bet ticker comes up, like let's make it an easy experience for me to bet the same amount on everything. for example. So FanDuel to me is by far head and shoulders above everything else when it comes to the onshore stuff. And yeah, like bet online's nice, but also, I mean, you also got to have the guy that, like back in the day, you'd call someone named Tony. You make a bet. Nowadays we call those paperhead sites. And honestly, in a lot of cases, those have the best inventory. So you almost need some access to those come, let's say draft time. The best place to find draft props right now is on paperhead sites. So you really do need a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I love FanDuel. FanDuel, I lost a bet, like a Cooper Cup prop bet, like week 1 this year. Lost it completely straight out. They mistakenly gave me the win, and I like self-reported myself. That's how dumb I am sometimes. I was like, I don't want to get jammed up for this later. You guys screwed this up. This is not my money. They're like, no, it's your money. You can keep it. And like, how great is that? That's FanDuel, man. You can get your cash out immediately. I don't give a shit if I sound like a shill. It's a good site. I don't care. It's great. So I'm with you there. That's good stuff.
Fact. The National Breast Cancer Foundation reports that a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer every 2 minutes. And we already know finding new innovations in research, surgical options, and clinical trials is essential to finding a cure. And to all those fantasy football ladies that may be listening, we also know with early detection your survival rate goes up. And that's why breast self-exams are very important, and the best way to give your old girls their best fighting chance to win the championship. So, with all that being said, the fellas here at the IDP Pro Players Pod would like to remind everyone, the National Breast Cancer Foundation does take donations, so please, go and give what you can. And let's give our mothers, our wives, our sisters, and every woman, the support, the resources, and maybe even more importantly, the hope, by knowing we all really do care.
All right, awesome. Let's pivot to football a little bit. So you're a Giants guy. That is good stuff. I saw Giants Lions this year. Not a great outcome for you guys, but they had a hell of a season. Thoughts on the future? What does this next season look like? What do you hope they get in the draft? Thoughts in general?
Oh man, I mean, well, the coaching situation and like the lack of progress and innovation recently has been laughable. They weren't winning, but on top of that, they weren't even trying to resemble a modern franchise. So the change, bringing in Joe Shane, bringing in Brian Dable, having Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka, two relatively progressive like minds when it comes to thinking about offense and defense, everything's great. And then, obviously we saw it on the field. I understand that they're probably not the team that won a playoff game last year more than they are a team that's on the right path and just needs to continue to build the bottom and middle of that roster. But, as a fan, it is interesting to hear the way people talk about Dan Jones, aka Danny Dimes. It is interesting to hear how so many other quarterbacks get excuses thrown out when they don't have premier receiving talent, when they don't have an elite offensive line. And so I think I wish they didn't have to pay him this year. I wish they could have had that option. Obviously they had to pay him. It is what it is. He will be I believe the 10th highest paid quarterback projected, assuming there's a couple of more deals this offseason when we start the season. So that doesn't sound that horrible to me. And to me, again, circling back to Brian Dable, the culture he's building, the entire offense was in Arizona. Offensive linemen were out there. Running backs were out there. The whole offense was out in Arizona training. And to me, that's the culture that you can only build by being like a human and connecting with the players and taking it to a place where, people actually want to play. Like everyone's making news of Saquon Barkley not going to show up to some voluntary stuff. He was out in Arizona training with the team. So obviously this is just a contractual tango where they just have to do this. And so I love the culture. I love the direction. I love how they run a modern offense. And I'm optimistic about the fact that they can compete in a relatively weak NFC.
Awesome, man. Yep. Good call there. All right. Fantasy football wise, I assume that you play normal fantasy. I mean, we talk DFS, we talk gambling. If you're playing normal fantasy, what's your preferred format, site? What do your leagues look like year to year?
How dare you put a label on me? I think, yeah, exactly. Fantasy really going through a transitional period here. I would say this, like a lot changed when kids got into the equation in terms of time that you can commit to fantasy sports, especially. So I would say, back in the day, I would have. I played in an IDP league. I was all in on that kind of stuff. I was even a guy that was like writing like game matchup previews between the teams. But nowadays, I'm a sucker for canceling as many season-long managed teams as I've had. I've really tried to get I still play with my college. I still have too many leagues where I'm trying to get down to where I just have a couple of like the social leagues where I stay connected with old buddies, and then I play. I'm heavy into the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I play in their main event. So if you're not familiar, it's a season-long manage that funnels into a tournament style. And so I'll usually fire 2 or 3 teams there. Maybe I'm actually going to be playing in their bare knuckle challenge this year, which is 28 rounds, best ball. You're not allowed to have any notes, no pen and paper. The only thing you can use is the draft board. So wish me luck. And then heavy into like best ball has kind of changed the game for me. So it pairs very nicely with DFS. It's not quite as solved though. Out for the obvious reasons of just incredible amounts of unmeasured variance. I mean, like they're underdogs on their second massive contest already this year. It's a super flex. And yeah, to your point, I think some of the beauty of best ball is it is DFS in a different set of clothing with like a more unsolved problem. And so I fire as much as I can into the various best ball stuff. And then like once the season starts, like I'm in the weekly DFS grind.
Nice. Hey, that's a good family first, man. We get it. I get it.
Yeah, completely out on Dynasty. All that stuff is great. If I was a younger man, I would be eating up all of that shit. I'd probably be playing college fantasy as well. But I just for me, I had to kind of build these lanes of what I can do and what I can't do. And I love football. I got
it's like super flex, man. I can't stand it. Can't stand fucking super flex, man. What's
Gary,
the point?
I hear the argument of this. It more represents the value of quarterbacks in real life.
Bullshit.
Yada, yada, yada. But I will say it's just like when I step into these underdog super flex drafts that I've been doing, just horrible quarterbacks going in the 5th round. It's like, this feels wrong.
I play in the Scott Fish Bowl and because it's great calls, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a super flex, right? Only one. And I just got back into it like 2-3 years. I suck, but I'm active. And I try to participate. I really just don't give a shit because realistically, it's just not my thing, Yeah. You
kind of with
got what you like, and and best ball. I don't know. It's climbed up my ranks a lot.
Love best ball. Best ball is great because I'm with you guys. There's only so much time in the day. And, you draft and you leave the goddamn thing alone. So I'm with you there.
It also allows you to I think the thing about best ball that is perfect is it's all you have to do to prepare for the season because you're forget mock drafts. Imagine if you did a mock draft where people actually had a stake. And so they're really making those like player A or player B decisions and building you the perfect ADP ladder. So if nothing else, you become aware of how people are valued. And so I think at least that way you're coming away with information and you're not just wasting your whole off season spending 2 hours a night drafting, hiding away from the children and in the garage drafting basketball. You're at, that accumulated knowledge eventually is what's going to drive the engine that allows me to do a draft with no notes. So I think and even onto the gambling stuff, right? Because it very easily can give you positions to fire off on these player prop markets.
You ever remember something and go, damn, I forgot I remembered that shit. Oh yeah.
Oh, in general, all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a heavy thinker and I do like to take my medicine, if you know what I mean. So there's all the time that happens.
Morning. Nothing like waking up to crying kids, hungry pets, and an angry alarm clock. All a football fan wants is to get your kids to school, feed the dogs, and clock in at the office, and then you can finally settle in and enjoy a moment of peace with your morning cup of coffee. And you are just in time for the SGPN IDP Pro Manager Podcast, which your idiot league mates haven't yet discovered. Let Brad, Craig, and Gary start your day with all the reliable IDP information you need. Tune in every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the SGPN Fantasy Football YouTube channel, where your SGPN IDP pros know exactly what you need, besides another cup of coffee.
So we'd be remiss if we didn't ask, since this is an IDP podcast. So Gary told me you played once 20 years ago and haven't picked it up. What happened?
Boo!
I would say played once in that it was one league.
Okay.
It's my origin story. I moved out to California after college. I graduated from Virginia Tech, go Hokies. And I moved out to California, had a buddy that was trying to get into like the entertainment industry. And I was not. And I got my first job working for, if you remember eFax, it was like faxing over email. That's how
I think so.
So it was like,
funny.
This is hilarious because both faxing and email are old ass technologies. But you could send faxes over email, and they had I joined and I very quickly, because I was always kind of the guy that found his way into a betting or office pool situation, found the fantasy, and they played IDP there, and I was like, what is this? What do you mean you have defensive players? This is interesting. And then I very quickly realized that no one actually, like, the rankings on Yahoo were horrible. Edge to be had in terms of just drafting these middle linebackers and safeties on dog shit teams who are just gonna accumulate tackles. And I want to say we started like 8 defensive players.
Nice
players. Yeah, it was like, a lineman, a couple linebackers, a couple defensive backs, and some guard positions. But in a way, that would have been 2004.
12 team probably.
Yeah,
that's actually a nice size depth chart.
Scoring was such that the defense was so valuable that if you did that right, you just dominated.
Yeah.
And so I had some nice years dominating the work colleagues there. But then it was like once that league, like
you take an advantage of Susie and File.
Oh, did have Stacy in accounting, who was just,
right.
We all thought she just liked it because she hated hanging out down in accounting. So she did it only to come up and hang out in like the IT, the help desk area. But she was tremendously bad, and we were definitely all taking her money. But I mean, it was fun. I just once a league wasn't presented to me, I didn't seek it out. So I kind of not until I was at the Fantasy Expo a couple years ago was I even like back into like, well, wow, people still play this. Like I was completely unaware of the idea that people were still playing it. And I mean, I get it. I love it. It's a degenerate angle on fantasy. That's what I love. I love when people see something and they say, you know what? I like to go a little deeper, please. And so that's what IDP is. Again, it's like a whole nother, I know all the guys. Well, unless the edge is still the same and you just look.
Yeah, I'm not inviting you to my league because more than likely you're probably the gambler in you is bullshitting me, and you just
it is because I'm routinely on tackle props every year because that's a marketplace and props where similar to IDP, there's like public perception, and then there's like find like the guy that no one knows on the Falcons that's just gonna have a zillion tackles. I would assume it's still a similar game. There's just so much more data on it. I almost think there's like IDP has almost grown to where it's like the king of niche. Yeah. Like I would imagine it's more played than like Devi and some of these other like college and stuff like that. So
I'd hope so. I don't mess with DV. I don't mess around with that too much. So been doing IDP for a long time, and that was just an advantage.
Do you play in leagues with only defensive players?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, except for Scott Fish.
I do.
The Scott Fish Bowl.
I'm in best balls with only defensive players.
So there's no offensive positions.
No, none.
Excellent. I'm almost intrigued by this. because I've only ever played in the mixed format. So this is almost interesting to me.
Dude, I've got problems. I played in a kicker DST league a couple years ago.
See, that is crazy because I would be fine if we just eliminated kickers. Yeah,
well,
the defense special teams, I'm okay with that. But or if it was just a team's kicker. Like, I hate that you have to take a guy and then that guy could just evaporate in 3 weeks because he missed the kick. Like, let's change that. Actually, have you ever? That's actually a fun kind of niche format of fantasy that I've played before, where you're just firing on like teams' positional groups, and so you're kind of drafting more into like a game situation than you are actual players. It can be fun. Anyway,
only in Vegas.
Ever notice these days how things have changed with sports entertainment? Suddenly everyone is edgy and they don't mind offending people with offensive words. It's everywhere. Podcasts, to radio, to primetime TV. All I want are NFL defensive player reports, maybe a quick update on the best streaming corners, and yet I have to hear about the dirty O. That's right, offensive player discussions and hot takes blocking my path to the sweet, sweet defensive information I need.
Bullshit.
That was until I found the IDP Pro Players podcast. And now, unless the IDP pros Jon or Gary mess up, I know I'm not going to be offended by their no dirty O approach.
Damn.
So take my word for it. Catch the Sports Gambling IDP Pro Player podcast every week and leave the dirty O behind. So if you or someone you know has an IDP degenerate problem, that's terrific. And the fantasy move to make was to go follow a couple of the best veterans in the fantasy football industry. That was on Twitter at @IDPRO. One word at the IDP Pro Players Pod.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Vegas, let's get you on record here. So, predictions next year, NFL. Who goes to the NFC, AFC title game? Who wins the big one? What do you think?
Oh, man, so many people. I would assume you've already heard a lot of people say the Lions and the Jags. I just can't wait to fade that angle. Honestly, to me, if I was going to try to get cute, I wouldn't get cute with – I think Patrick Mahomes will be there. So, let's figure out one other team. Would I love it to be a surprise, like Steelers story? Yeah, but you know what? I'll say the Dolphins. I will say I think maybe the Bills already peaked. So I'll say Dolphins, Chiefs on one side, and then on the NFC side, it's so up in the air to me. I think the narrative that the Lions, like with Jared Goff, are a legit contender is kind of laughable. I don't really see anyone in the NFC South that is intriguing. It's hard to not want to just pencil in the Niners, but then you're like, wait a second, who's the quarterback? I mean, Tommy John, again, throw it back to my old days. I used to play fantasy baseball. I mean, Tommy John, I don't think that's like a 6-month injury. So maybe, and Trey Lance, according to you guys, sucks. So I'm really confused at what you guys are doing here. And so, yeah, there's just, it's a lot of uncertainty. It's hard to not say Eagles as much as a Giants fan. It pains me. So I'll go way off the reservation, and I'll say that two teams in the NFC East play. Let's say Giants and Eagles in the NFC Championship.
Ooh.
Although I do love Seattle next. I think Seattle probably not going to get all the way there, but they're going to be a very frisky contender in the West.
Yeah, no doubt. Geno, man. Geno on the comeback. Love it. Beautiful. All right, so I know Gary's going to hate this, but it's good interview, so I'm going with it. Tell us
no
about...
dirty O, man. God damn, we
nope.
made it this far, now you're going to crack that shit open.
Even worse than that, Gary. Tell me about some of your other favorite sports that you like to watch and bet on.
I'm going to make Gary happy. Only football.
Maybe.
Really?
No. Here's how I would rank.
Did you say just only football?
Football is king. College football, XFL, USFL, AAF, EFL, all of these, FCS football, all of these work for me. I do love college basketball. I find that college basketball, not to sound like an old man, but it's really becoming one of the more pure forms of anything. Can't stand the don't let the NBA guys hear this, but can't stand the NBA. I mean, watching these playing games, they're still not trying. We caught a lot of shit. We put out a poll who was going to play first, DeMar Hamlin or Zion Williamson, and all these people got angry at us. And yet, you know what? DeMar Hamlin's going to play before Zion. So the list is pretty short. I would say I do watch youth soccer. I coach my kids and are heavily involved there. I'll watch a fight if it's on. I lean more MMA than boxing.
WWF, any wrestling in you?
Not a big wrestler. When I was a kid, I kind of was into it. Not so much anymore. Hockey playoffs. I always check in for the hockey playoffs. Those are fun. And baseball. Grew up a big baseball fan, big Yankees fan. Always take the kids to a couple games every year. And I honestly kind of like some of the changes they made, but not something I used to be day and like. Fantasy baseball, daily roster changes, full season rotisserie, like used to do that. And I just can't really get dialed in all the way. So honestly, like for me as a sports fan, it's like NFL and college all the way through, pick up college basketball kind of as that's ending, take college basketball through April. And then it's this time of year where it's like, well, what do you get into? It's like, I like the golf majors. Those are fun. And I'll kind of pop in and out. Do my best ball in the off season, and like it's already the NFL draft. So the NFL certainly in their campaign to take over every month of the calendar year with major events, it's beautiful. It makes life easy, right? We got the draft in 2 weeks, and then we'll take it from there.
I heard some type of rumor, don't quote me, something about maybe letting them do bets on scripted wrestling matches.
Oh yeah. You can already get down on wrestling if you wanted to, but now it does seem like they're going to find a way to get these things in the regulated books, which obviously is pretty crazy, knowing that it's actually like this isn't Cue the X-Files music, like, oh, this game is fixed because Scott Foster's on it. This is they actually have writers, like they have people they pay. They call them writers.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so,
I want that job. That's the only job I'll leave an SGPN for. I can tell you right now.
The fact that you can bet on this stuff is remarkable to me. People know the outcome.
But what's the wildest thing you've bet on, and what's the best bet you've won?
Oh man,
yeah.
The wildest thing I bet on was probably. So it's a Puppy Bowl story, but inside info on the Puppy Bowl, bet way too much, and this was kind of before they would limit you on these gimmick. They weren't like gimmicky, or they were gimmicky, but they weren't like as aggressive in limiting you. And I bet way too much on an inside info that turned out to be false. As far as the best, like just the most electric win. Or most electric like feeling of a win. I give out a first half parlay every week of the NFL season, 5 teams. And for whatever reason, I was chasing a little bit that week. I just put much more than I normally put on this bet. And it was one of those games like the parlay was completely cooked. Like 3 of the 5 games were not looking good. They were, I want to say it was like 3 overs that were just, the games were like 3-0 into the second quarter.
Oh.
And within like this minute stretch, everything went my way. And I remember it was one of those moments where it was like, I almost need to go outside and have a cigarette. Like this was an unbelievable feeling of euphoria. Because I think I was having a bad day overall, and it was just like bang, and a 5-teamer can really shoot some life into you, especially when you've gone from your normal, let's just say quarter unit bet to 2 units on it. So that was crazy. I also had this moment, March Madness, a number of years ago, where I had an amazing day. And the next day I go to the window to collect all my winnings, and the cashier is just like each ticket, like ching, ching in my head. And she's like, well, do you want to make any bets with this? And it was like, we'll call it like $4,000. I want to put all of it. Cornell versus Wisconsin and Cornell, the Ivy League school, was like plus 180, plus 170. I put all of it on this plus one, almost a 2-1 dog.
Ooh.
The game was over by halftime. Cornell had crushed them. And I tell this story often because it's one of my biggest wins ever, but it was also like, I was a little bit sad. I didn't get that same feeling as the 5-team parlay. I got almost no sweat out of it. And I remember thinking, like, this was supposed to be the coolest fucking thing I've ever done. And I was like, where, like, almost like a junkie. Like, where's my action?
Where's my dopamine? Yeah.
Come on.
I understand
Right.
the money's good, but
Dude, I've been there, man. Last time the Saints played the Jets, Taysom Hill was killing the clock in the last 2 minutes, and he broke through the line and ran for that like 70-yard rushing touchdown or whatever it was. That got me my 5-leg parlay. He needed rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, and both happened on that. But that hit a dopamine when you see it happen. Like, that's what we're chasing. The money's nice, but
you guys are the gambling degens. I am not. I gamble. I dabble. I've won some money. I dabbled into IDP props last year, but I've actually decided I'm not going to go there. Even though I was well above.
Well, you're welcome if you ever want to come back.
I'm going to let the IDP. We just discussed it. It's already the redheaded stepchild of fantasy football, kind of. So I'm watching these guys that work out there in Twitter and social media. They're working it. I just don't see an instant avenue, and I think I would rather let that build up a little bit before I even really think about putting some serious effort into it, other than making my own bets.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, my weirdest win I've ever had. Used to have this boss, man. You ever do horse racing?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay, so he hauls me down to Kentucky from up here in above Dayton, Ohio, right? He wants me, he just hates driving. So he offers me cash and says, man, you can drink, all this, right? Okay, cool, dude. We'll go. We get down there, dude, just start a tab, hands me some money and shit. I give a shit less. I'm walking around this, I can't even tell you where it was, but it was, they were just showing like closed circuit TV. The races were on California thing. I decide I'm going to throw $50 on a bet on a horse. I know nothing about this. He tells me a couple of things. I look and I'm like, well, man, so now the odds on this horse right here is the longest, right? Yeah. He just laughed at me. I put $50 on me. He told me I was an idiot. I walked out of there about $1,300 a little bit later.
Oh, nice. I've had a trip there before.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Not a gambler, though.
Says the man who put $50 on a long shot at a horse track. I mean, if you had maybe said dog track, I would.
Yeah. No, I'd like to get into some of that shit. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, I mean, I have an Italian side of the family. We would visit that Italian side of the family. My grandfather would come back from like they have dog tracks in Rhode Island, and he would come back from the dog.
Yeah, I knew it.
Like, that's some real old country degenerate stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
The IDP Pro Players Pod is also presented by IDPguys.org, where managers and fans can further their fantasy football knowledge into the depths of Dynasty, individual defensive players, Superflex, and beyond. That was IDPguys.org, where they do way more than just defensive football.
Alrighty, we're getting close here, so let's get a couple legit questions in here. So, serious one for you. What does the future look like for SGPN?
Oh, up. More, we joke that our strategy is more. I would say we've grown a lot. Depending on when you bolted on to the spaceship, we've certainly been growing. I mean, we're up to over 30 feeds as far as podcasts, a number of them now going to video, obviously have the website. I think the plan is just continue to be more. I mean, I think right now our biggest advantage is we're an independent company that can launch shows and give them time to grow. We can, bring people on and give them time to grow and develop that audience. And I think you're seeing it, especially in the sports gambling space. I mean, I know fantasy is very diluted, but sports gambling is also very diluted. And a lot of these big major media companies thought it would be as simple as like, let's throw together a good looking person and a former athlete and have them talk about fantasy DFS or fantasy or sports betting. And what we're seeing is a lot of people seem to be changing their minds on who and what that show is looking like. And that tells me that they're realizing that, back to my earlier comment about the intimacy of podcasting and how difficult it is to convert someone to long form content. I think it's bad. That's the benefit we have. And so I think for us, it's continuing. It's kind of like, let's figure out what's working, what's not working. I think, we're seeing some of our shows start to really take off, and that's awesome. And then it's, what's the next thing? How can we continue to develop and grow as an organization so that we can continue to offer greater exposure and greater distribution and a greater base audience for someone to tap into and whatever their lane is, to find other people that are interested in that lane. So, not to sound cliche, but it's more, and it's honestly us continuing to kind of fight the small business independent. Like, we joke that we're going after big corporate gambling, but that's really what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to zig when they zag. We're trying to get into the cracks, like IDP, like USFL football, like Disc League, things that aren't necessarily mainstream, because there's still an audience. And all that we've learned during the pandemic is people will find things they're interested in if you provide them, and if you provide something that's quality. And so that's where we're at. That's where we're going. And, hopefully we can have a conversation next year where we're talking about, some sort of live distribution where, we essentially, no different than some of these other sports gritty type of organizations, can be providing content to people 24 hours a day.
That's awesome, man. Speaking of plans for the future, is there anything you want to shout out, talk about?
I mean, shout out to the NFL draft and Roger Goodell, our commissioner, for making the best product ever. No, I mean, look, we're just continuing to do it. I mean, honestly, like this time of year, you're listening to an IDP podcast, and you might want to check out other football content. We have an NFL gambling podcast. We have a prop cast. We have the sports gambling podcast. We're going to be diving deep into the draft. We're going to be doing a live draft, mock draft. We're going to be doing a live draft stream. And then, I would encourage you to check out all the other shows on the SGPN fantasy feed. That's really one of our focuses this year, is like, we being very candid about you, not that this is a plug or anything, but being very candid with you. We kind of originally thought we could build fantasy the same way we built everything else, with finding people that are already into the brand and having them kind of dive into this area they might be into. But fantasy is very unique, and it's very hard to build a brand because of how diluted it is, and how many small, medium-sized, and large fish there are in the sea. And so our big pivot was, we want to bring people in that are already shown to have success in doing that. And so one of the big areas, like, very excited to like have people check out the other shows on the network and continue to expand and see what we can do in terms of, like, making a name for ourselves in the space.
That's awesome, man. That's a great vision. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Gary, you got a last question if you want?
I got more of a statement, and that's, being a part of this is exciting because what we see from you and Sean, it reverberates, man. Reverberates. Same thing that happened to your Giants. They got a new coach. Love it. And I also love it. We've made it through this show without talking about any fucking dirty O.
I like that. I mean, honestly, culture, like I my background.
Oh, damn it.
No. I'm not going to talk about dirty O.
Oh, okay.
But you bring up a great point. Like the value that I think SGPN brings the average creator is that, like, my background comes from tech. I worked in tech for many years, and specifically I managed teams of engineers, and we generally managed the stuff that we only got spoken to when something horrible happened or something broke. We weren't getting praise, right? A little bit of that, sorry to say it, but offensive line treatment. And so culture was important because these people were they were going through like stressful stuff. They were going through difficult times. You were doing stuff under the gun, undermanned, and all of that good stuff. So along the way, I learned how and what culture really is and what building a team really is. And a lot of that back to, like, offering creative control, really, like offering a framework and getting out of the way. not overly micromanaging, right? Like saying this is what we'd like to do. What are your thoughts on how to get there? And so just little things like that can really amplify, especially in the independent workforce, right? We like, candidly, the space of content creation and businesses like ours is very cutthroat. You're not working on a massive margin. In a lot of cases, you're probably not treating your people great because you're replacing them constantly because you're maybe not paying them great wages. And so you have to offer something else that can be tangential, that can, like, hey, like, I know we're not able to like give you a full-time job or whatever that is, like whatever you're looking for, but like what we can hope to offer is this, like, you're going to plug into this amplification engine, this framework known as SGPN, and hopefully we all win.
That's awesome, man. That's I love it. It's a good vision, and I've had a great time since I've been here. So absolutely love it. Thank you everyone for listening this week. This was an excellent one. Make sure you're following the founding father of SGPN. I'm just going to say he is Ryan Kramer at Kramer Centric with a K on Twitter. Gary, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I can't wait to get Sean on here and see what he has to say about that shit. But anyways.